Supernatural Nevermore, Chapter 2. Bowles Motel and Lodge, South Bend, India, Wednesday, 15th November 2006. That's what's the problem with the job, Sammy. Sometimes you hit a dead end. Sam Winchester silently agreed with his brother Dean as they did their final check of the motel room before hauling their stuff out to the car. Their father had drilled into them from a young age, always to scour a room before checking out, as it wouldn't do to leave personal stuff laying around, especially when some of the stuff included exotic weaponry and ancient grimoires. Generally, they were good about cleaning out the room. They had one time in Key West when Dean had left a tin of salt next to the bed, and he insisted on turning the car around on Route 1 and headed back to retrieve it. Sam had asked why they couldn't just go to the supermarket and get another one. It was pretty common household item drill, but Dean had insisted that it was principle of the thing, which had been found out until the clerk asked why the two brothers had a big tin of salt in their hotel room, and Dean had gotten that wide-eyed look he got when someone went off the script. With Sam watching and neither bothering to hide his grin, Dean had stammered for about half an hour before coming up with something about lactose intolerant. Dude, Sam had said as they went back to the car to retrieve the tin in the hand. You do know that this all has basically nothing to do with lactose intolerance, right? Thank you, Mr. Wizard, Dean had replied through clenched teeth. Today they were checking out and hitting the road. Their latest job had not been a job at all. Dean was still talking and they headed out of the car. But at least we got to see beautiful downtown South Bend. Yeah, real hot spot, Sam muttered as Dean opened the trunk. Hey, we go where the job takes us. Or don't. It really was a suicide, Dean. A normal run of the mill suicide, Dean shrugged. It happens. He tossed his bag into the rear of the trunk, rolling it over the boxes and weapons and supplies. Sam did likewise, using his left hand and his only using his left hand, and his right was still in the cast from when a zombie girl broke it back in Lawrence. Sam didn't have the same attachment Dean did to the back of the 1967 Chevy Impala, the family car their father had passed on to Dean. Then again, Sam sometimes thought he did have the same attachment to his late girlfriend Jessica that Dean had to the Impala. When the car wrecked a couple months back, Dean had rebuilt it pretty much from scratch, a process that took weeks of back-breaking effort. However, even Sam had to admit the massive trunk size was a great benefit given that they lived their entire life out on his car. The rear of the voluminous trunk was taken up with three bags, Sam's bag, Dean's bag, and a laundry bag. That one was starting to bulge. We're gonna need to do laundry real soon, man, Sam said. Not here, Dean said quickly. I don't think a cop would be too thrilled about with Ace reports Anderson and Bear. He better slip before he decides to run my face in with his computer. Sam nodded in agreement. Dean was still wanted for a series of murders connected to a shapeshifter against form in St. Louis earlier that year, and there was just no way a mutated freak who looked just like me did it was going to fly up the U.S. Attorney's Office. Dean closed the trunk and headed to the main office. Like most places of the Winchester State, the Bowles Motel and Lodge was deep, cheap, with minimal amenities. All they needed was a roof and bed and a working shower, though the latter was a hit and miss with some of the places they stayed, and they weren't exactly rolling in dough. Fighting demons and monsters, the things that went booga booga in the night, was important, but it didn't pay. They lived off credit card fraud and Dean's pool and poker winnings. That meant Hyatt was not an option. They entered the shabby office, which had cracked a wooden paneling, a badly stained beige carpet, and a pockmarket from the front desk. An older woman sat behind the desk, puffing away at a cigarette while sitting under a red no smoking sign and reading a Dan Brown book. Her face was freckled with enough makeup to allow her to attend a Halloween party as a Joker, and her hair was sprayed with an inch of life that something probably wanted to be in a beehive. Sam was sure he could have hit that hairdo with a weapon in the Impala's trunk and he wouldn't have done a lick of damage to it. She wore a badge that said Monica. Hey, Dean said. We're checking out. Monica took a final puff of the cigarette, then subbed it out of the ashtray. You're Winwood, right? She asked with a scratchy voice. Sam managed to roll. not to roll his eyes. Just once, Sam wished Dean would pick an inconspicuous, inconspicuous alias. That's right, Dean said with a smile. We're ready to check out. Yeah, there's a problem. Your credit card has been declined. I'm gonna need a new one. There was Dean's wide-eyed look again, but this time Sam didn't really smile. Declined? Really? Dean looked at Sam helplessly as they turned back to Monica. Could you try it again, please? She gave Dean a withering look. I've tried 3 times and they all allow. Didn't they say why? No reason. You want to call the credit card company? You can use this phone. She picked up the desk phone, which Sam had appealed to see was a rotary dial and held it up for Dean to take. Oh no, that really won't help. Sam realized why Dean was stalling. He had other credit cards, but none of them said Dean Winwood on them. Quickly, Sam stepped, reaching into his back pocket and said, I'll get it. He removed one of his fake credit cards from his wallet and handed it to Monica. She took it and stared at it, which Sam had been hoping she wouldn't do, since this other one didn't say Winwood either. I thought you two were brothers. Without a missing beat, Sam said, We are, but I was adopted. By the time I tracked down my birth parents, they both had died, so I changed my name to McGodley to in tribute of them. Monica's face split into a ridicule that Sam supposedly could have been called a smile. That's so sweet of you. What a nice boy you are. She ran into the car through the machine that entered into a total of 3 nights that they stayed. The wait for the machine to check was inimitable. Dean, to his credit card, had recovered that he had the best poker face on. Finally, after several entities of the machine beeped and the word approve appeared on the small screen. All right, Monica said, still smiling at the roar of the printer could have been heard under the desk. Here's your card back, Mr. McGullicuddy. Thank you, said Sam, retrieving it, putting it back in his wallet. Such good manners, Mr. and Mrs. Winwood. Obviously raised you both right. Dean smiled. Yes, ma'am, they did a bang-up job. Monica had handed them the printout just as well as the credit card machine receipt. Just sign here and you can be on your way. Once that was all done, they went back inside. Nice save there, Samich, Dean said with a grin. You know, I'm finally starting to get it, Sam frowned. That sounded suspiciously like the beginning of a lengthy debate at the end, which would be a joke at Sam's expense. Get what? Well, Sammy, we grew up together, and that whole time nothing about you ever screamed lawyer at me. So when you told me that you were applying to be in law school, it kind of threw me. But I've been watching you for the last year, and I figured out. Here it comes, Sam tried not to grin. You could shovel manure as good as anyone I've ever met. The line you pulled on Monica there, the adoption, beautiful. And with a straight face. In fact, Sam's skills of lying both in terms of pretending to be someone else and also misleading people to the true nature of life and the world around themselves had been one of the things that attracted him to the law. His life as a child of a hunter, supernatural creatures, and being trained to be a hunter himself have given him these skills anyhow. And it only seemed natural to put them to good use. It wasn't that he told his brother, though. Yeah, I can pull off the wool over people's eyes, and I do most of the research, the lore, and I'm good with weapons in the hand-to-hand. They arrived at the Impala, and Sam gave his brother a grin, and he stepped out of the passenger door. So, what do I need you for exactly? Before Dean's constructor applied on his phone, started playing Deep Purple Smoke on the Water. For that matter, Sam added, I'm the one who showed up to you how to download ringtones, pulling out the cell phone of his pocket. D. Scott, I would have figured it out eventually. He flipped it open and glanced at the number, which had caused his eyes to open even wider than they had in the office. Putting out his phone to hear, he said, Ellen? That was a surprise. Ellen Harville ran a roadhouse that catered to hunters. He and Dean had recently learned that Ellen's late husband had died when he was on a hunt with her dad. It put a bit of strain on their relationship, especially since they only found out because Ellen's younger daughter Jo snuck out and went on the hunt with them. Indeed, against Ellen's very strenuous objections. Years of listening to loud music and using firearms have played merry hell with Dean Searing, so he kept the cell's volume up way too loud. That meant Sam could hear Ellen's tiny voice over the front speaker. Listen, she said, I may have a job for you. Really, cuz it's for Ash. He wouldn't ask himself, but I figure sure you two would do a favor, so you might be willing to do him one back. Ellen seemed to be barreling through the conversation, not letting Dean get a word in, or at least trying not to. Keeping Dean quiet was usually a forehope. Sure, I guess. He smirked, and he'd always had a soft spot for the mole-head. What'd he need? Ellen gave him the particulars of the case to Dean, and it did in a low voice, so Sam couldn't make out all the words. Ash had been a deadbeat drunk with nothing less than genius and able to track down demons via computer. A trick Sam had never mastered despite many attempts. As Dean had once said, Ash Greekful was strong. Sam didn't entirely believe his claim to have gone into MIT for shadows. He said it was a college in Boston and anyone who got in there would have known it was in Cambridge. But he did believe that Ash had the know-how based on the times he had helped him and his brother out. Okay, we'll check it out. With that, Dean flipped the phone shut and looked at the driveway. The road will take us up to 80, right? Sam tried to remember the map. I think so, yeah. Where's the job? Dean grinned. New York. Really? Sam turned and went back to the trunk. Open up, I want to show you something. Something in New York? Dean said, joining him in the back of the car. After Dean opened the trunk, Sam looked at the folder out of his bag. It might have been nothing, but I noticed a couple of murders that took place there. Sam, it's New York. They get it like 15 murders a day, which is why these two probably flew under the radar. He took the clippings and photocopied off the newspapers. He looked at several different public libraries that they had visited recently. First, we got a guy bricked up in the building's basement. Sam handed Dean an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper filled with news stories, a section of Daily News, dedicated a community about a man named Mark Rivers who had been bricked up in the basement of a house in the Bronx. As Dean glanced over the photocopy, Sam went on. At the past Sunday, the two college kids were beaten to death to an orangutan. Dean looked at that. Seriously? Sam nodded. Those two murders are at night out Edgar Allan Poe's short stories. They're kind of a stretch, Dean said as he handed back the story and then bricked up man. But they took a place in the Bronx, and Poe used to live in the Bronx. Plus, the first murder was on the 5th, and didn't find the body until 2 days later, which happened on the 5th, which was the last full moon, Dean said with a nod. Yeah, okay, maybe, but tossing the folder back into the trunk, Sam said, and the orangutan was on its last corridor. He didn't need to add up lots of rituals were based on the phases of the moon. It's not a big deal, but since we're going to New York anyhow, I figured we could look into it while we do whatever it is we're doing. Dean slammed his car trunk shut. Haunting. Some of the friends of Ash have been having ghost issues, so what's they gonna call? Sam chuckled. Well, but we both got into the car in the driver's seat. That's really weird. What's they have been hunting. We'll see them at all in no time. No, Sam said to shake his head. That's Ash could have been a friend. With a chuckle of his own, Dean slid the car into ignition. A grin spread on his face as the Impala hummed to life. Hear the engine purr. Squirming into the passenger seat, Sam thought, I swear to God, if he starts petting the dashboard again, I'm walking to New York. However, he spared that. Dean shoved a Metallica tape into the player, twirled at the volume up in the car filled with guitar openings to Enter Sandman. Dean turned to him. Atomic batteries to the power. At his older brother, Sam said, I'm only going to say turbines to speed if you don't make a comment about me in short green pants. Dean pulled the gear shift down to R and said, let's move out. He backed out of the parking spot and brought it down to D and then sent it out onto the open road.